Welcome back to part 2 of today's Good Morning Trumptopia. I'm your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Thanks for joining me as I rant and rave and ramble about politics and shit. Today, wanted to focus on the timeline of the Russia investigation. Spent 45 minutes introducing it and rambling about an interconnected web of ideas that I'm kind of mad scientist-y trying to, present all together. And now I've taken a quick break and honed my focus. And hopefully, we're going to really get balls deep into this here. According to factcheck.org, the FBI has been investigating the Russian government's attempt to influence the 2016 presidential election here in the United States since July 2016. They're trying to find out whether or not campaign associates of Donald Trump and or Donald Trump were involved in those efforts. Now, let's pause for a moment because there is a big question, and I see it all over the mainstream media. I see it in the left and on the right, and some of the centrists shows, because I try to scan them all. Right, everything from Democracy Now, which would be my idea of a centrist show, to Vice News, which is sort of like edgy, hipster, meant for the youngest set of generations, whatever label you want to call them nowadays, to Fox News, when I get it on my cable system, which I thankfully now do. And I've seen a lot of things being bandied about, but the weirdest, I think the most interesting, is this sort of obfuscation of what the issues really are. That's, like I was saying yesterday, we need to pause and take a big deep breath and step back, right? So let's talk through that right now. If we take a big step back and we review history, which I've tried to do a little bit, and in my own mind, my awareness, and we look at politics, what are the things we know about it? Politics, generally corrupt, right? Often we think of it as attracting those who are already corrupt individuals. And we understand that it's no longer considered radical, extreme conspiracy theory to say that war is organized murder for profit. And while it's a little bit trickier to prove that is so, has been so since before the Tower of Babel, pretty much most of human history since the Tower of Babel has been ridiculously war-filled. And, without very much, although history is written by victors of wars, and therefore always slanted, that's a fucking fact. And it's not hard to figure out. So, I think it's interesting that on all over the media spectrum, there are talking heads advocating this question of, and now while I totally applaud questioning everything, this issue of what is it that's actually being investigated, and then dismissing it all as a witch hunt. That it's perfectly normal for the President of the United States to have the 3 highest ranking intelligence officers / quote unquote diplomats in the Oval Office. That just ain't normal, people. Even if, now, let's step back. As much as that's not normal, here's something that should not be forgotten, which is why I'm always talking about pushing through the noise. All government has been corrupt. All wars have been for profit. No matter how benign, no matter how charitable, no matter how wonderful sounding around the edges, all organizations that are political in nature, and I include religion in this, organized religion, not spiritual practices or traditions, they are to some degree or another inculcated or involved in the machinations of either causing conflict or war, sustaining its ideological support amongst the population base of those countries involved or those communities involved, or keeping people one way or another complacent in the fact, maybe even eager to participate in war, which, and I hate to sound like a broken record, it must never be forgotten. No matter what rationale is presented, all wars are organized murder for profit. Whether your war is low tech, like the terrorists are, what's the right terminology? They are committing acts of war. They are at war against whatever they've been told they're at war against. And it doesn't matter what we get told they're at war against over here, because all of it is bullshit. All of it's really about sending men to places where they can spend the bullets that have been bought, use the guns for the purposes they were designed, and, utilize those commodities that have been acquired. Why? Because then they need to be replenished. The moment they are replenished, the profits go up. So, as we review the actual facts of this, as presented by factcheck.org, which I promise to really, really do, and as we maybe look around to see if there's any questions from potential audience members or people who listen along, all of those facts have to be kept in memory, right? Because they deeply influence how we interpret political events. And it's important to define that there's a difference between political events and political data and facts. Okay. The first thing that they list is 2015, July. The main intelligence director, or GRU, which is responsible for, and I'm quoting from FactCheck, for intelligence collection for the Russian military, gains access to the Democratic National Committee computer network and maintains that access until at least June of 2016. Okay, let's stop and think about that. Russia hacked the DNC and had access to the DNC for a year. This is according to a report issued January 6, 2017 by the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, as reported here by factcheck.org. Okay. Is it implausible to just accept that as a fact? No. It's not, especially when you look at, it's common knowledge that Russia has done some squirrely things in other countries over the years. Okay? The problem isn't that they have or have not done squirrely shit in other countries over the years since World War II. The propensity was there before World War II. Why? This is where the rabbit hole thing is. All the questions of why, it all gets answered by you don't need a conspiracy theory more complicated than greed and the equation that greed wants more, war is profitable, which means that greedy people want to profiteer on war, which means we always need more war. Duh. Which means you need to keep finding clever ways to trigger war to happen. So as early as a year of spying on the Democrats. I think it's cute that the GOP has denied, but maybe it's true. So far, not much has been reported out on the DNC's servers being hacked directly, or the GOP's servers being hacked directly. I don't see like March of 2016. It's reported, according to the January 6, 2017 report issued by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Russian intelligence services probably begin cyber operations that result in the compromise of the personal email accounts of Democratic Party officials. If a bad guy is doing that, we've got a two-party political system here. All much love to the third parties out there, but this is intended to be a two-party thing. Why would Russia only hack one side? But apparently, these guys were only hacking one side. But I would be willing to bet that they didn't need to overtly hack the GOP's computers because they've been working the people's side for a long time. Anybody who thinks that, because I think this really happened, okay? Right? The universe is an illusion, so this is all a dream. Trump represents the worst of our society. Putin and his entourage represents the worst of Russian society because we really are two different societies in this illusion, this dream of, the divine entity pretending to be individuals in human flesh. And because we as individuals are also part of a networked organism, we manifest what we gravitate towards. And now, a big question is it human nature to always gravitate towards greed and corruption and stuff? No, but you do gravitate towards that which you are encouraged to gravitate towards. Now, here's one of the scariest facts about all of this. Never mind the nuances, because this is all... Here's a fun... this is all kind of rabbit hole-y, right? But either Russia really did hack both parties in some material way, and we just haven't been reporting out. No one's been telling us about the GOP hack, or they felt that their efforts were more well placed in face-to-face asset acquisition, and some kind of like MK Ultra level plan is not implausible, because this shit all goes back. I already said that, right? Anybody who thinks that the Russians just approached Donald Trump since he started running for president is naive and a bit of a fool. This shit always goes back decades and decades and sometimes generations. Because what we get told is only ever the window dressing, the show. Politics, as it has been said before, is humanity's original reality TV show. Full of drama, full of intrigue, and full of, real conspiracies and manipulation and excitement and thrills and the occasional murder or 5 or 10. As normal as it is today to say that, politics is non-violent, it's crazy, right? Because we're also, it was on the news just yesterday afternoon, I believe, that some congresspersons out there are bold enough to critique their own colleagues and say, hey, what the fuck, guys? We've been illegally at war for like 7 or 8 years now. Or depending on which way you measure it and which wars you count. But a really cynical view on American history would render a number less than 10 years. I'm not sure of the exact number because I haven't done the counting for myself in a really long time, and every year that goes by changes the numbers, right? But it's safe to say, and I'm sure that this could be verified, fact checked, that in the 300 some odd years that the United States has been around, we only have had real, true, genuine peace with no deployments of our own boots on the ground somewhere else shooting people or endangering getting shot at. 10 years. We've been around 300. If that isn't an indication of the fact of what the real game is, I don't know what else could be. Other than the fact that kind of ratio is probably severely true of most sovereign nation states wherever they've been ever since, forever ago. July 27th, at a press conference, Donald Trump says he's never spoken to Putin, even though he had said in 2013, I have a relationship with Putin. That's a famous day. I remember this day for the rest of my life because I saw this happen live. At that press conference, and I'm reading off of factcheck.org, but I watched this live. At that press conference, he also said that he doubts that Russia was responsible for hacking the DNC computer network, and then turned around and said, what the heck? If you did, why don't you keep doing some more? Go ahead and find us the 30,000 personal emails that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton staff deleted when she left office. He literally says, and this is fact check, quoting Trump, which I know that I heard this quote come out of Trump's mouth live on TV, and I forget which channel I was watching, but it was uncommentated on. It wasn't a clip, it was live. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. He literally said that. Later, adding the color commentary for himself that he was being sarcastic. I posit to you, my friends, that you genuinely do not need a recipe more complicated nor occult than greed plus war profiteering equals this is all a fucking ruse. But a real one. Russia really did hack shit, but they hacked shit I think with probably some large percentage of people involved, not just here, but over there, knowing that this is kind of a scripted ruse distraction show to keep us and others in other countries angry enough to not get organized around the wars we are already in, and the escalation of those wars, and the instigation of new wars with new countries that want in on the profiteering. You can't profiteer on your military being involved in a war if you aren't in a war, folks. Other interesting highlights from the timeline is the fact that, Jeff Sessions met with Kislyak on the 8th, September 8th. And it's funny, there's an interview, this I don't think I did see because I don't watch a lot of RT, which was formerly known as Russia Today. And there's a lot of hardcore Trump voters, I noticed, throughout the campaign process that constantly referenced RT. And I think they're clearly a dubious source because they are, known to be directly owned by government entities in Russia. That's like if there was a television channel television network called Trumptopia today, and it was directly owned by Donald Trump. It's that silly, right? But on Russia Today, Trump was quoted in an interview as saying it's pretty unlikely that the Russian government was behind the hacks targeting the DMC. I think maybe the Democrats are putting that out there, but who knows? But I think that it's pretty unlikely. I hope that if they're doing something, I hope they're doing something that somebody's going to be able to find out so they can end it, because that would not be appropriate. How ironic that the same guy that said, "Hey Russia, go hack some more emails, please and thank you," also went on a Russian propaganda channel and said, "Oh no, this is fake news, nothing to see here." For zooming forward to today, without trying to disrespect, I don't want to get into any legal problems. You are allowed to criticize the president. This president, and this is something that, thank God, commentators on all sides of the spectrum have been willing to say, and I want to bolster that. For a president who claims to be innocent, he does not talk like an innocent man. And I hate to make that, but everybody I hate to join in this chorus, but people on Fox News to CNN have been saying this, and I hate to sound like I'm trying to be one of them, because I'm not. But someone who's not guilty, who's completely innocent, would support investigations, would step away and not try to fire anybody involved in the investigations, would keep their commentary about the investigation to a minimum, would step up to the plate to be deposed and be asked questions under oath right away, and would not hire 17,000 an army of lawyers. Right? And it's funny because Trump himself and Trump surrogates have said the same kind of thing about opposition folks, the people they opposed during the election. They're like, if she's innocent, why doesn't she just fucking give us the emails? Right? And they also played the double-edged tactic of, if you're going to demand the presumption of innocence, think about the double speak on that. Because that's what the programming coming from Trump, is. It's a quadruple double speak. All right? Let's zoom, because honestly, he was basically saying about his opposition in the final election, if she's going to demand the presumption of innocence, which is supposed to be bestowed upon legally as a default, according to the Constitution, but now it's a dirty thing. It's bad. Hillary Clinton's demanding that we give her the presumption of innocence. If she's going to do that, then she better not hide behind lawyers. She better not destroy her emails. She better not hide behind her private server. She better give us all the documentation, right? I have a series of memes that is intended to point out a pattern. Before the election, after the election. Donald Trump is a master of the flip-flop. He flip-flops and then flip-flops on his flip-flopping all through the campaign and the election process. But now that the chips are down and the shit is literally hitting the fan, he's lawyering up, he's much more focused on his speech giving, and he's, believe it or not, much more focused on his tweeting. Because it's much more about distracting you from the distraction. And now, mind you, I don't think he's guilty of what they're telling us they're investigating. What are they investigating? Whether or not the Russians and his guys colluded on the hacking. That, my friends, is a stinky, smelly fucking red herring. It's stinky as fuck. Because you know what? A smart covert op is run with the bifurcation of things so you can deny collusion. I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would put my bet on that whoever did the hacking did no diddly squat and never talked very much to Kislyak. There was probably some other person that they did their connections with, right? So people at WikiLeaks, they probably genuinely are sort of like a third party. They got abused. They didn't realize they were getting used, or they did it for their own, freedom of information kind of reasons. They probably aren't, in as much as anybody isn't, wholly owned and operated by by the Russian intelligence system. And mind you, like I posted this before too, Russia's not the enemy. The enemy is someone deeper, way deeper than that. But there are clear lines about who gets to play who, and who gets to do what. Because the war the escalation of war, if you look at Syria, Syria is and has been for the last 7, 8 some odd years, and probably almost going on 10 now, a theater of war where war profiteers get to go and play out their little war games, right? And who are the big players? Well, Russia backs the Syrian Assad government vis-a-vis some like alternative channels sometimes, but sometimes fucking directly, right? And then other countries that want to get in on the war racket and the oil racket, because Syria is also important to the oil thing. Let's not forget about that. That won't come up in any congressional hearings. They get to go and fight, and but the real fucking money is in all the bullets spent. Isn't it amazing? No matter somehow or another, people get guns, people get bullets, people shoot them at each other. One way or another, all of those guns, all of those bullets, all of those bombs have the weird, strange, awkward, common thing in common, which is they were all manufactured by the same industry. Maybe different companies that claim different allegiances, sure, but it's the same motherfucking industry. And if you dig deep, what's a common pattern with industry-wide things? Although there may be different placards and different, business signs, different brands, somehow deep down everything's all owned by the same small handful of people. Right? Duh. Full circle on that. But one other favorite moment of mine, which is not right here, but it's during the debates. On October 9th, at the second presidential debate, Clinton is quoted as saying, "Our intelligence community just came out and said in the last few days that Kremlin, meaning Putin and the Russian government, are directing attacks to influence our election." Right? Russia didn't, as far as facts go, from what I've gathered, and I have read this, and I've looked at a lot of other reporting, the hacking that was going on was not election data. That's a nuanced factoid. The hacking was like social engineering vis-a-vis communications data, in other words, emails that had gone around the DNC, right? That could characterize the DNC and what was going on with Bernie Sanders, etc., and what's her name, and how they were, clotheslining him or backstabbing him in favor of Clinton, right? So let's really take a moment to think about that. The DNC had its own controversy. It must not be forgotten. I know a lot of Democrats are still pissed off about it. The Democratic Party's having an identity crisis right now. Huzzah. May this moment of party affiliation identity crisis wake some motherfuckers up. The DNC's corrupt as fuck. If Hillary Clinton had won, right, the corruption investigation today may or may not be about Russia collusion. But it would definitely be about DNC colluding with itself to put the thumb on the scale of the supposedly free and clear, the best free and free democratic elections in the world. The DNC itself was corrupt and colluded with its own preferred candidate. That would be the scandal right now. And there would be congressional hearings and investigations. Okay? Why? Because the same shit would be going on even if Hillary Clinton were president. And I know that probably pisses off a lot of my friends and family and followers that are, post-Hillary fans. Post-I'm with her, trying to figure out what to do Democrats and independents are like, touchy on that subject. But let's face it. If she were in office today, what I just said would be true, and Syria would still be escalating. There'd still be some issue with Russia. We'd still be investigating Russia vis-a-vis hacking our elections, vis-a-vis social engineering our elections. That's much more important. In terms of today, present tense, what we really need to be looking at, right? Michael Flynn probably didn't collude very much with the hackers or with the social engineers. They were on their own track with something else. Money laundering. Michael Flynn probably knows about the money laundering. And it just becomes really patently obvious when you look at buildings like the 666 building that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, financed the purchase of. And, that was funded with a lot of questionable money. And they got buildings everywhere. It doesn't take a lot of comprehension about the way real estate works and the way it's kind of a rigged market so that only in real estate, leveraged money makes you more money. So the people who are really making the money are not the people who, people who buy and sell the buildings necessarily. It's the people who finance the buying and selling of the buildings. Just like the people who are making the money are not the people who win or lose the wars. Let this one sink in, folks. It's a gem. This one just came to me from, if you believe in a higher source, which I do, and it's not a blind belief, that just came through right now. It's not the people who win or lose the wars who really make the most money at the obscene level to the point where it's morally objectionable. And it might not even be the manufacturers of that gear and those who work for those corporations. It's those who finance the networked activities involved. Right? So think about that. Let that really sink in. Trump is a puppet. I don't know. Is it spy novel MK Ultra level sort of? He's been brainwashed and trained since a child? Maybe. Maybe not. But he sure as fuck has been buying buildings and using other people's money for a long time. And, hold on a second. That would... Ray, we just got delivery. That's where follow the money gets really down. And are his collaborators, are the people in as part of his campaign fully aware of that? Maybe, maybe not. Some of them probably are. Michael Flynn being the only one that asked for immunity, saying he's got a story, he probably knows enough. So the facts are all there. And everybody's really famous, really charmingly good at spreading enough doubt and they've been doing it throughout. As it is noted here on factcheck.org, October 19th. How long ago was that? How long ago does that feel like? The third and final debate. Before the election, Trump again refuses to accept the U.S. intelligence community's assessment that Russia was responsible for stealing emails. She has no idea. He says she. Like the Hillary Clinton was somehow personally responsible for the statement Russia's been involved in some hacking. She has no idea whether it's Russia, China, or anybody else, Trump says of Clinton. And while I really doubt the veracity of that statement, because I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the DNC was corrupt enough to jerry-rig their own primary, then they're probably corrupt enough to be just as fucking Russia-influenced as Trump's campaign is. Forgive me a second. I just got a mail delivery. Oh, it's... Huzzah! The corporate workings. I gotta return my satellite provider's equipment. I won't mention the name, but they were dicks, and they overcharged us for really shitty service, and that did nothing but progress from like tantalizingly awesome to shitty over the 2-year contract that I had. To not get sued, I won't mention them, and I now have a new service that was an interesting trade-off. I now have awesome, blazingly fast internet with no data caps and no daily, weekly, monthly limits of any kind, or restrictions or anything like that. Just endless data, which is awesome because that means I now can just jump on the mic and do this show whenever I feel the whim. Whereas before, during that horrible 2-year period, I'd had that kind of idea of doing that sort of thing and just couldn't because too oftentimes my internet was shit. The trade-off, though, is that with the new cable service provider, I've only got basic cable channels, which upside, Fox News is back. I've got a couple different Fox News channels, whereas Fox News was mysteriously taken away from me during my 2-year contract with the previous satellite-oriented provider. But no movie channels. And I used to have HBO, Cinemax, blah, 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 blah. Now I've got nothing. Maybe I'll upgrade it. I don't know how much they charge. But why did I bother commenting on that? Because this is real life. I do my podcast from my living room. And there's a jackhammering away outside. You guys can probably hear it. Back to my point. This is our reality, folks. And yes, the facts are getting skewed and tilted by the media empires on purpose. And I post about that constantly. Don't get sidetracked. Why? Because they want us arguing. They want us arguing over these stupid rabbit holes. They want us arguing over which story is fake news story and which story is real news story. And they want us arguing and fighting and getting mad at each other. Getting mad at each other to the point of escalating to violence. Just see where my theories start to come full circle, because we really have. And brace yourselves, folks. I've already made this meme. Brace yourselves. An escalation in domestic gun and gun violence and other violence that's politically motivated is coming, and it has been coming for a while now. And it won't just be gun violence. Yes, like there was just a knife attack. A police officer was stabbed or his throat was slit. And my heart goes out to that individual and his family, and to the family and to the individual who committed the act. And I'm sure that there's going to be all kinds of interesting debate around why he did it. But this is the force majeure of the entire postmodern system, folks. And this is why I'm on the airwaves trying to get through to everybody. None of this is by accident. It's all kind of free-form and improvised a la Eddie Izzard. In other words, it's going to be really hard to find a well-documented script of all these things that I'm pointing to. But the social conditioning is so much more powerful than a handwritten script. If you get handed a script, you got to memorize it in order to get the lines right. If you've been socially conditioned your whole life, you don't. You've already got the bullet points spewing out of your mouth. Okay? Have a debate with any statist about why statism is wrong, and you'll see. They could be super well-educated. They could be totally not well-educated. They'll blather the same general points out. Just like you have an argument with a Christian. They could be a PhD in physics, if they're a hardcore Christian, or, a redneck trailer trash in their job. No offense to either of those two kinds of people, but if you're arguing ideology, it doesn't matter what education level you've had. You're arguing ideology, and based on my lifetime of experience, observing and doing research, the ideological argument cannot be won. Why? Because ideology is lamer and stupider and worse than philosophy. Philosophy, at least if you craft the philosophy, the purpose of it is that you're supposed to be trying to describe reality. Therefore, what you describe has to be somewhat consistent with and, comply with natural world events. Ideology is pure fiction. It's pure idea. It is the obsessive fixation and the endowing of belief and faith in an idea. When an idea comes out of mind, ego, abstract thinking, that idea is going to be laden with whatever conditioning you've already gotten and be it's going to be, the way things are now, very far removed from that which exists in the natural order of things, in the organic cosmos. Right. So, we looked at some interesting factoids about the fact check. We didn't get too caught up. We know that November 8th, Donald J. Trump was elected the 45th president of the United States. We know that Jared Kushner and Michael Flynn met with Kislyak at Trump Tower on December 1st or December 2nd. We know that the reporters broke the story just right after that. We know that Kushner met with Sergei Gorkov, a Russian state-run bank that's been sanctioned by previous governments of America because of money laundering related to illegal activities that Russia conducts both in its own country and other countries. All right? My point is that the Russia is a ruse should not be allowed to be used to excuse the entirety at all. We cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. These facts are facts. Okay? They are really real. And they go to a deeper, larger conspiracy, if you want to call it, which I keep talking about. And this will be borne out by the fact that gun sales have been spiking and are going to spike more. You know, we had the sort of a reverse tactic going on during the Obama era and in previous eras. Whenever they put a Democrat in office, it seems like, you know, the NRA and the extreme right demonize that person as somehow wanting to get rid of, you know, take all your guns, which they don't really want to do. They just want to exercise, you know, thoughtful gun control to try to prevent a little bit of the margin of error sort of gun events caused by crazy people. But the overall marketing ploy is still to get you to buy more guns. Now, when they put a Republican in office who has been painted a bad guy for some, the game is to divide the nation and the world around whether or not he is a good guy, bad guy, to get people arguing and fighting about it internally while we go to war in three new countries. You know, we escalate in Syria and Yemen, which very few people are ever talking about, and we probably go to war in North Korea as a proxy war with China. And the scariest bit is we probably won't go to war with Russia herself. Isn't that frightening? But it's a witch hunt, folks. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not the kind of witch hunt that you think. And so much has happened in the last since 2017. I'm not even going to try to scroll through it all, but it's all right there. I invite people from all over the political spectrum to review the timeline and the facts themselves and consider some of the conclusions that I'm positing and encourage those investigating to investigate in the direction I'm pointing. Yeah, follow the money, follow the banks, go deeper, and then ask the question: how much of this is tied to manufacturers, weapons, you know, for like defense? How much is this tied to proxy wars that we're already fighting? How much is this tied to a new level of craziness war we want to fight? And how many people are overreacting to the internal conflict domestically and getting riled up? We have to get past the ideological aisle that, you know, if you're brown, you're a terrorist, and if you're white with a gun, you're just crazy. They want us so angry and armed with teeth that we'll shoot for one of the many clouded reasons that they've stitched this little melodrama around. And we can either let them continue to play that out, or we can start waking up from it and pushing past it. And if that's where you're at, you're going to want to listen